Granite samples covered my mother's dining table. My sister, Jennifer, debated between coastal gray and Arctic white for her kitchen renovation, her engagement ring catching the light. Arctic white photographs better for Instagram, Jennifer said. My mother nodded, already scrolling through Pinterest on her tablet. I sat across from them with my 17-year-old daughter Maya, watching the performance with growing unease. Maya's college brochures lay untouched near the edge of the table. "Mom," I said carefully, "Maya got her Northwestern acceptance yesterday. We need to discuss the college fund." My mother didn't look up. "That's wonderful. We'll talk about it later." "The deposit is due in 2 weeks," Maya said quietly. Jennifer glanced at us with irritation. "Can we focus on one thing at a time? The contractor comes in an hour." "The fund Dad set up before he died." "Your father set up a lot of things," my mother interrupted, her tone sharp. "I've been managing them for 15 years. I think I know what I'm doing." Maya's hand found mine under the table. "The college fund is specifically for Maya's education," I said slowly. My mother set down her tablet deliberately. "Your father was clear that I would have discretion over family finances. And right now your sister needs help." "My kitchen is literally falling apart," Jennifer added. "The cabinets are from the 90s. "We'll be fine," my mother cut me off. "There are loans, scholarships. But your sister is getting married in 8 months and needs a kitchen that can host family gatherings. This is about the whole family, not just one person's college dreams." Maya's hand tightened around mine. "How much are we talking about?" I asked. "65,000, Jennifer said brightly. "The contractor said we're getting a steal. The college fund is 68,000. "Perfect," my mother said, returning to the granite samples. 3,000 left over for textbooks. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. Your sister needs a nice kitchen more than your daughter needs an expensive private university. Northwestern is overpriced anyway." Maya made a small sound beside me. When I turned, tears streamed down her face. She'd worked 4 years for this. Perfect grades, student council, hospital volunteering. Northwestern's biomedical engineering program had been her dream since freshman year. "The decision is made," my mother said. "I've already spoken to the bank. The transfer happens tomorrow." I stood slowly, helping Maya up. Every instinct screamed at me to rage, to flip the table. Instead, I took a long breath. "Okay," I said quietly. My mother looked up, surprised. "Okay. You've made your decision." In the car, Maya broke down completely, her composure dissolving into harsh sobs. "It's not fair," she choked out. "Grandpa left that money for me. He promised." "I know, sweetheart," I said, my hands gripping the steering wheel. We drove in silence, Maya's crying subsiding into hiccups. One thought kept pushing through: my father had been thorough. Obsessively thorough. He'd been an estate attorney and he'd built protections into everything. I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and took out my phone. "Your Uncle John." John Martinez had been my late husband David's best friend and law partner. When David died 8 years ago, John helped me navigate the complex trusts my father had established. He'd insisted certain safeguards remain in place despite my mother's push to simplify things. He answered quickly. "Sarah? Everything okay? I need to ask about the trust structure Dad set up. The college funds specifically." Pause. "Interesting timing. Your mother was just here an hour ago." My pulse quickened. "Authorization to transfer funds from the education trust. She said it was for your sister's wedding expenses." Pause. "I told her I'd need to review the documentation." "And, Sarah, remember the conversation after your father passed? About trustee designations? Your father named your mother as primary trustee, but he built in secondary approval requirements for transfers over 50,000. You're the co-trustee. You have been since you turned 35, 7 years ago." The parking lot tilted. "I'm the co-trustee?" "Yes. Your father structured it so your mother handles day-to-day management, but major financial decisions require both signatures. It's in the trust documents I gave you. The blue folder." I remembered vaguely, too grief-stricken to fully process it all. "So she can't transfer the college fund without my approval?" "Correct. And there's more. About 18 months ago, your mother started requesting increasing amounts for household expenses. $10,000–15,000 a month. I've been documenting everything. How much total? Over the past year and a half? Around 240,000. Maya was staring at me now, tears forgotten, sensing something significant was happening. Where's that money going? I asked. That's what I'd like to know. Your mother has been increasingly aggressive about accessing funds. The college fund transfer request today was just the latest. Sarah, I think you need to review the complete trust activity. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? I'll be there at 9. After I hung up, Maya and I sat in silence for a long moment. Finally she spoke. What does this mean? It means Grandpa thought ahead. Way ahead. That evening I called my mother. She answered cheerfully, assuming I was calling to apologize. Sarah, I'm glad you called. I spoke with John Martinez. I interrupted quietly. A brief pause. Oh. He mentioned you need my signature for the transfer. That's just a formality. Some outdated requirement. You just need to sign a form. He also mentioned the $240,000 in household expenses over 18 months. A longer silence. When she spoke again, her warmth was gone. I don't appreciate you questioning my management. Your father left me in charge. He left us both in charge. That's what co-trustees means. The household expenses are at my discretion. $10,000 a month? What are you buying? That's none of your business. I'm entitled to live comfortably. On $250,000 over 18 months? While telling your granddaughter she can't have her college fund. Don't you dare lecture me, my mother snapped. I raised you. I took care of your father through cancer. I've managed this family's finances for 15 years while you focused on your little teaching job. I've earned the right to spend money without your permission. It's not your money, Mom. It's the family trust. I am the family. Your sister is the family. That college fund is family money and I'm allocating it where it's needed most. Sign the authorization. Jennifer's contractor needs the deposit by Friday. I kept my voice steady. I'm not signing it. Excuse me. I'm not authorizing the transfer. The money stays in Maya's college fund. You can't do this. I'll remove you as co-trustee. You can't remove me. Dad's trust structure doesn't allow it. And I'm meeting with John tomorrow to review all the trust activity for the past 18 months. You're making a huge mistake. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but for the first time in hours I could breathe properly. The next morning, John's conference room was covered in documents. Bank statements, trust paperwork, expense reports everywhere. Here's the summary, John said, handing me a coffee. Your mother has been systematically draining the trust's liquid assets. The $240,000 is just what I could track directly. Where's it going? Your sister mostly. Condo down payment last year, $60,000. Her car lease, $18,000 annually. Credit card payments, $4,000 monthly. Plus vague family support expenses. What about the main trust? The primary assets, commercial properties and the investment portfolio, are intact because they require both trustee signatures. But the liquid operating account your mother controls? Nearly empty. 6 more months and she would have needed to start selling assets. Which would require my signature. Exactly. I think that's why she's desperate for the college fund. She's run out of money she can access unilaterally. Maya looked up from the documents. Grandma spent my college money on Aunt Jennifer's lifestyle? It looks that way, John said gently. What happens now? I asked. Now you decide. You can file a formal complaint. Your mother would likely be removed and face legal consequences. You can freeze her discretionary access and require dual approval for everything. Or you can try to work something out privately. I thought about my father and the protections he'd built. About the promises he'd made to Maya when she was 9. I want her discretionary access suspended immediately. Everything requires both signatures from now on. Done. I'll file today. And I want a complete forensic accounting of the past 5 years. John nodded. I'll hire an auditor. What about the college fund? It stays exactly where it is. And I want to know what other education funds exist. There's a trust for your sister's future children. Your father was thorough. Lock that down too. Everything requires both trustees. No exceptions. My phone started ringing before we'd even left John's office. My mother, then Jennifer, then my mother again. I let them all go to voicemail. The messages started coming through as we drove home. Call me immediately. What have you done? The bank says I can't access the accounts. This is financial abuse. You're destroying this family. Jennifer's messages were even more panicked. Mom says you froze her accounts? What about my kitchen? The contractor starts Monday. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I took Maya to Northwestern's financial aid office, where we submitted her enrollment deposit using the college fund. The fund that was exactly where it should be, protecting exactly who it was meant to protect. That evening, my mother showed up at my house. I watched through the window as she got out of her car, her face red with fury. I almost didn't answer the door, but Maya touched my arm. Let her in, my daughter said quietly. Let her see. I opened the door. My mother pushed past me into the living room. How dare you? How dare you freeze me out of my own money? It's not your money, Mom. It never was. I am the trustee. I have been managing. You've been stealing. From your granddaughter. From your own family. I provided for this family, my mother cried, her voice cracking. I gave your sister the help she needed. I maintained the family home. I kept everything together after your father died. By raiding a college fund? By spending $250,000 in 18 months. You have no idea what it takes to maintain our lifestyle. Your father's death left responsibilities. That's enough, I said, and something in my voice made her stop. Dad set up the trust to protect us. All of us. And he knew exactly what he was doing when he made me co-trustee. He knew you'd need oversight. My mother's face went pale. He trusted me. He did. But he also knew you too well. He built in protections because he loved you and wanted to keep you from making mistakes you couldn't undo. So what now? You're going to cut me off? Leave me with nothing? You'll have your discretionary allowance. A reasonable one. But every major expense goes through both of us now. That's how Dad designed it, and that's how it's going to work. And Jennifer's kitchen? Jennifer can take out a loan like every other adult. My mother stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. The realization that the power dynamic had fundamentally changed. She'd spent 15 years as the family's financial authority, and in one day that had ended. I need that money, she said, and for the first time her voice was small. Why? Credit cards. Oh, I owe a lot. How much? She looked away. 87,000. The number hung in the air. John would find it all in the accounting anyway. We'll pay it off from the trust, I said finally. Once. And then you're on a strict budget with oversight. Those are your options. Take them, or we let the lawyers handle everything. My mother left without another word. Through the window, I watched her sit in her car for 10 minutes before driving away. Jennifer called an hour later, and this time I answered. I can't believe you're doing this to Mom, she started immediately. I'm not doing anything to Mom. I'm protecting what Dad built. Over a kitchen? You're really going to destroy our family over a kitchen renovation? No, Jennifer. You and Mom tried to destroy Maya's future for a kitchen renovation. I stopped it. Mom said she'd pay it back. With what money? The trust she'd already drained? Jennifer, did you know Mom owes $87,000 in credit card debt? Silence. Did you know she's been taking $4,000 a month to pay your credit cards? That's different. That's family helping family. Family helping family is not stealing from a college fund. Family helping family is not draining a trust fund to maintain appearances. So what, you're cutting us both off? No. I'm making sure the money Dad left goes where he intended it to go. Starting with Maya's education. I hung up before she could respond. 3 weeks later, Maya and I drove to Evanston to tour the Northwestern campus one more time. She'd been quiet since everything happened, processing the betrayal and the rescue in her own way. As we walked through the engineering building, she finally spoke. Grandpa really did think of everything, didn't he? He tried to. Did he know Grandma would do this? I considered the question carefully. I think he knew she might. And he loved her enough to protect her from herself. That's why he built in all those safeguards. And he trusted you to use them. Eventually. When I was ready. Maya stopped walking and turned to face me. Thank you. For fighting for me. I know it wasn't easy. You're my daughter. It was the easiest thing in the world. We stood there in the afternoon sun, on the campus where she'd spend the next 4 years becoming whoever she was meant to be. The money that would pay for it sat safely in the trust fund, protected by a man who'd died when Maya was 9 but who'd loved her enough to plan for her future. My phone buzzed. A text from John, accounting complete. Your mother's discretionary spending total, $287,000 over 3 years. Your sister received 73% of it. Full report attached. I pocketed the phone without reading the attachment. There would be time for all of that later. The full accounting, the difficult family conversations, the slow process of rebuilding trust, or accepting that some things couldn't be rebuilt. For now, I just wanted to stand here with my daughter and imagine her future. The one she'd earned, the one my father had protected, the one she deserved. Come on, I said, linking my arm through hers. Let's go see the biomedical labs. I hear they have equipment your high school could only dream of. We walked across campus together, my daughter already talking excitedly about research opportunities and internships, her voice full of hope and possibility. Behind us, literally and figuratively, the people who'd tried to steal that future could only watch from a distance, finally understanding that some protections couldn't be bypassed, some promises couldn't be broken, and some trust funds existed for exactly moments like these. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter just like it had every month for the past 7 years. $3,000 in a certified check made out to my parents. Mom, can I wear the blue dress to Grandma's party? My daughter Emma stood in the doorway. She was 9 years old, with bright eyes that still held hope my parents would eventually warm up to her. I'd fostered Emma when she was 4 and adopted her at 6. She was mine in every way that mattered, but my parents had never accepted it. Still, every month I sent that check. The blue dress is perfect, sweetheart, I said, pulling her into a hug. My phone buzzed. Mom's name flashed across the screen. Make sure you're on time tomorrow, she said without preamble. And dress appropriately. Senator Mitchell's daughter will be there and I don't want any embarrassment. We'll be there at 2, I replied. We. Her voice sharpened. You're not bringing that child, are you? I felt my jaw tighten. Emma is my daughter. Don't be ridiculous, Sarah. This is a sophisticated gathering. Family only. You know she doesn't fit in with our circle. I looked at Emma, who was humming to herself while organizing her hair clips, oblivious to the conversation. She is family, Mom. She's a foster child you took pity on. There's a difference. Anyway, I've already arranged the seating chart. There's no place for her. She paused. Unless you want to cause a scene in front of the senator's family. The call ended before I could respond. I stared at the phone for a long moment, then at the envelope on the counter. 7 years of envelopes. $84,000. But it wasn't just the monthly checks, was it? The next morning, Emma was unusually quiet during breakfast. Are you okay, honey? I asked. She pushed her cereal around the bowl. I heard Grandma on the phone yesterday. My heart sank. Emma. It's okay, she said quickly, though her eyes were glassy. I know I'm different. I know they don't think I'm real family. I knelt beside her chair. You are real family. You're my daughter and that's all that matters. Then why do we keep trying to make them like me? Her voice was small. I didn't have a good answer for that. At 1 o'clock I texted my mom, we won't be able to make it today. Emma has a stomachache. The response came within seconds. Convenient. Maybe it's for the best anyway. I sat with that message for a full minute, reading it over and over. Maybe it's for the best anyway. Something crystallized in that moment. A clarity I'd been avoiding for years. I opened my laptop and pulled up my banking records. The monthly payments to my parents were there, neat and consistent. But there was more. 4 years ago, I'd quietly paid off Dad's $85,000 business debt. The payment went through an LLC I'd set up. 3 years ago, I'd sent $45,000 for their kitchen renovation through a contest Mom had supposedly won. 2 years ago, I paid the $28,000 in property taxes on their Lake Tahoe vacation home when they were about to sell it. 6 months ago, I'd paid $52,000 for Dad's cardiac procedure through the hospital's financial aid program. I'd been supporting them for years, always anonymously, always protecting their pride. Because they were my parents and I loved them. But they just told me my daughter wasn't worthy of our name. I picked up my phone and called my accountant, David. I need you to pull all documentation of financial support I've provided to James and Patricia Morrison over the past 7 years, I said. Every payment, every transaction, every property record. David was quiet for a moment. Are you sure, Sarah? This is your parents we're talking about. I'm sure. I also need you to prepare formal notification that all future support is being terminated, effective immediately. And David? I want them to know about the vacation home. The one in Tahoe? The one you bought? The one I bought, I confirmed. That they think they own. Another pause. This is going to be a shock to them. Yes, I said quietly. It is. Emma appeared in the doorway. Mom? Are you okay? I smiled at her, and for the first time in months, it felt genuine. I'm perfect, sweetheart. How would you like to spend the weekend at the lake house? Her face lit up. Really? Just us. Just us. We'll leave in the morning. After Emma went to bed that night, I received the first call. Dad's number. Sarah, we just received the strangest letter from some accounting firm, he said. His voice had that jovial confusion he used when he didn't want to acknowledge something serious. It says something about a review of financial arrangements. Is this some kind of scam? It's not a scam, Dad. That's my accountant. Your accountant? Why would your accountant be contacting us? I took a breath. Because I've been financially supporting you for 7 years, and that support is ending. Silence. That's absurd, he finally said. We don't need your support. Your mother and I are perfectly capable. Dad, I've been sending you $3,000 a month since 2018. I paid off your business debt in 2021. I paid for your kitchen renovation, your property taxes, and your medical procedure. The documentation is all in the packet David sent. More silence. Then, even if that were true, why would you stop now? Because Mom told Emma she wasn't real family. Because she's not welcome at your party. Because I'm done pretending my daughter isn't good enough for people she's been supporting without even knowing it. Now wait just a minute. I'm not done, Dad. That vacation home in Tahoe? Check your property records. Look at who's actually on the deed. I could hear papers rustling, Mom's voice asking what was wrong. This can't be right, Dad said. This says Sarah Morrison is the legal owner? That's correct. When the property taxes tripled and you were going to sell, I bought it. I've been paying all expenses for 2 years while letting you use it. That arrangement is also ending. Mom grabbed the phone. You bought our house. Without telling us. I bought a house and let you use it because you're my parents. But Emma is my daughter, and she deserves better than being told she's not worthy of our family name. This is emotional blackmail, Mom hissed. It's my property. My money. My choice. Just like it was your choice to exclude my daughter. We'll fight this, Dad said. We'll get lawyers. Everything is perfectly legal and documented. You're welcome to keep the house. You just have to start paying for it. The property taxes are due next month. That's $14,000. Then there's the $3,200 monthly maintenance fee, utilities, and insurance. The line went dead. I sat in the silence of my kitchen waiting to feel guilty. Waiting to feel like I'd made a mistake. Instead, I felt lighter than I had in years. The next morning, Emma and I loaded up the car for Lake Tahoe. As we pulled out of the driveway, my phone started ringing. Mom. Then Dad. Then Mom again. I let them go to voicemail. We were an hour into the drive when Emma asked, Are we really going to the lake house? Won't Grandma and Grandpa be mad? It's our lake house, honey. And yes, they might be mad. But that's okay. Is this because of what Grandma said about me? I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. This is because you deserve to be treated like the precious, loved, real member of this family that you are. And anyone who can't see that doesn't get the privilege of being in your life, even if they're related to me. She was quiet for a moment. Even grandparents? Especially grandparents. They should know better. When we arrived at the lake house, there was a car in the driveway. My parents' car. I felt Emma tense beside me, but I squeezed her hand. It's okay. Stay here for a minute. Mom and Dad were on the porch and they didn't look happy. You can't keep us out of our own house, Mom said immediately. I held up my phone showing the property deed David had sent. My house. My name on the deed. My decision. After everything we've done for you, Dad said, his face red. We raised you. We paid for your education. You paid for 2 years of community college before I got scholarships, I interrupted. And I'm grateful for that. But I've paid you back many times over. Check your bank records. Check every mysterious windfall you've had for the past 7 years. That was all me, Dad. All me. Mom's face had gone pale. The contest money? Me. The anonymous donor for the property taxes? Me. The financial aid for Dad's procedure? Also me. They stood there processing. I could see the calculations happening. The realization of just how dependent they'd become on money they hadn't known was mine. Why didn't you tell us? Dad finally asked, and for the first time he sounded genuinely confused rather than angry. Because you needed help and I could give it and I didn't need the credit. I did it because you're my parents and I love you. I paused. But love goes both ways, Dad. And Emma is my daughter. She's not a foster child I took pity on. She's not a charity case. She's mine, just as much as I'm yours. More actually because I chose her and she chose me. Mom's eyes were wet. We didn't mean. Yes, you did. You meant every word. You've been meaning it for 5 years. Every time you forgot her birthday, every time you made an excuse not to see her, every time you introduced me without mentioning that I had a daughter. I felt my voice crack but push through. I kept hoping you'd change. I kept thinking that if I was patient enough, generous enough, you'd eventually see what I see when I look at her. But you won't. And I'm done waiting. Emma had gotten out of the car and was standing beside me now, holding my hand. Mom looked at her. Really looked at her, maybe for the first time. Emma's sweetheart. It's okay, Mrs. Morrison, Emma said quietly. Mom says we can't make people love us. We can just decide who we let love us back. Out of the mouths of 9-year-olds. Dad cleared his throat. Sarah, we can discuss this. We can work something out. There's nothing to discuss. You're welcome to have a relationship with your granddaughter if you can treat her with the respect and love she deserves. But the financial support is over. The free use of this house is over. I'll give you until tomorrow morning to remove your personal belongings, and then I'm having the locks changed. You'd really do this? Mom asked. Over a child who isn't even blood related? And there it was, the thing they'd been thinking all along finally said out loud. She's not just related to me, Mom. She's my daughter. My real, actual, legal, and most importantly, chosen daughter. And yes, I really would do this for her. I'd do anything for her. I pulled Emma closer. Because that's what real family does. We left them standing on the porch and walked into the house. My house, to start our weekend together. My phone buzzed constantly over the next few hours. Calls, texts, voicemails. My uncle called asking what was going on. My aunt sent a long text about family obligations. Apparently, my parents were making calls, trying to rally support and paint me as the unreasonable one. I blocked their numbers and turned off my phone. Emma and I spent the evening on the dock watching the sunset over the lake. She was quiet, processing everything that had happened. Do you think they'll ever understand? She asked. I don't know, honey. Maybe. Maybe not. Are you sad? I thought about it honestly. A little. But mostly I'm relieved. And I'm proud of us. Proud of us. Proud that we know our worth. Proud that we don't settle for people who make us feel small. Proud that we have each other. She leaned against me. I love you, Mom. I love you too, Emma. My real, true, chosen daughter. The next morning, my parents' car was gone from the driveway. They'd left a note on the kitchen counter. We'll be in touch through our lawyer. I crumpled it up and threw it away. David called later that afternoon. Your parents' attorney contacted me. They want to negotiate a settlement where they keep the house in exchange for forgiving your debt to them for raising you. Actually laughed. Tell them no. Tell them they have until Friday to pay the first month's rent if they want to keep using the property, or I'm listing it for sale. You're really doing this. I really am. 3 days later I received a different kind of call. My aunt, the reasonable one in the family. I heard what happened, she said. From both sides. I braced myself for the lecture. I think you did the right thing, she continued. I've watched them treat Emma like an afterthought for years. I've watched you bend over backward trying to make them happy. It was only a matter of time before something broke. You're not calling to convince me to reconcile? I'm calling to tell you that Emma is lucky to have you. And your parents are fools if they can't see that. She paused. For what it's worth, I'd like to take you both out for lunch next week. Get to know my great-niece better, if that's okay with you. I felt tears prick my eyes. That would be really nice. After we hung up, Emma looked up from her book. Good news. Yes, sweetheart. Good news. She smiled and went back to reading. I opened my laptop and looked at my bank account. Without the monthly payments to my parents, I'd have an extra $3,000. Without covering their expenses even more. Hey I said. How would you like to go to Disney World this summer? Her eyes went wide. Really? Just us. Just us. We'll make it a whole week. Whatever you want to do. She launched herself at me, wrapping her arms around my neck. Best mom ever. Best daughter ever, I replied. And I meant it. Every word. My phone buzzed one more time that evening. A text from an unknown number. This is your mother. We need to talk. On our terms. I deleted it without responding. Emma and I had a puzzle spread out on the coffee table, hot chocolate cooling on the side table, and a week at the lake house ahead of us. We had everything we needed. Real family doesn't demand your sacrifice while dismissing your worth. Real family doesn't make you choose between loyalty and love. Real family doesn't tell a 9-year-old girl she's not worthy of their name. Real family shows up. Real family chooses you back. And sometimes real family is just a mom and her daughter sitting by a lake, finally free. I stared at the Thanksgiving table, watching my 6-year-old daughter Emma sit in the corner chair, the one farthest from the food. My mother had arranged the seating that way on purpose. She'd done it last year too, and the year before that. The dining room smelled like roasted turkey and fresh bread. The chandelier cast warm light over the perfectly set table with its cream linens and autumn centerpiece. Everything looked beautiful and festive. Everything except Emma's placement at the far end, isolated from the warmth. Real family eats first, Mom announced, passing the turkey platter around the table. If there's anything left, she can have it. Emma's small hands gripped her empty plate. She didn't cry. She'd learned not to at these dinners. The first year, when she was 3, she'd asked why she couldn't eat with everyone else. My mother told her to be grateful she was invited at all. Emma never asked again. My brother Mark laughed. Makes sense. Why waste the good cuts on kids who aren't really part of the family tree? His wife nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. My children have our bloodline. They deserve priority. I sat quietly watching them pile food on their plates. The same turkey I'd paid for. The same sides, the same wine. The same everything I'd been funding for 5 years through monthly transfers to their grocery accounts. They didn't know. They thought some distant relative had left them a small trust that deposited money monthly for food expenses. My father had helped me set it up that way after Emma was born. He died 3 years ago, taking the secret with him. Maybe she's not hungry, my sister Jennifer said, eyeing Emma. She looks a bit chubby anyway. Emma was 6 years old and perfectly healthy. But she sat there, hearing every word, watching her cousins eat the cranberry sauce she'd helped me pick out at the store last week. I'd been 22 when I got pregnant. The father disappeared before Emma was born. My family's response had been immediate and cruel. They tolerated Emma's existence but made it clear she was lesser, not really family. A mistake I'd made that they had to endure. What they didn't know was that my career in financial consulting had taken off spectacularly. I'd started making serious money by the time Emma was 1. I'd been promoted to senior analyst, then associate partner, then full partner. By the time Emma turned 2, I was handling portfolios worth hundreds of millions. My personal income had grown exponentially. And I'd started paying for everything in their lives. Not just groceries. Everything. I paid my mother's mortgage. The beautiful 4-bedroom house she lived in. The one she was so proud of, the one she hosted these family gatherings in. Every month, $4,000 transferred automatically to cover it. She thought it came from a trust fund left by a distant uncle. I covered Mark's car payments. His Tesla that he loved to show off, talking about how he'd worked so hard to afford it. 3 years of payments, $68,000 total so far. He thought he'd gotten an amazing loan with mysteriously low interest. I funded Jennifer's kids' private school tuition through an anonymous scholarship. $22,000 per child per year. 3 children. She bragged constantly about how her kids had earned merit scholarships. They hadn't. I'd paid every penny. I covered their insurance, their utilities, their credit card bills. The balances they thought were mysteriously getting smaller each month. My brother thought he was managing his finances well. My sister thought she was budgeting successfully. My mother thought she was living comfortably on her late husband's pension. They were all living on my money while treating my daughter like garbage. I'd set it all up through my father before he died. He'd been horrified by how they treated Emma. This was his idea of poetic justice. Letting them be cruel to us while being completely dependent on us for survival. Pass the potatoes, Mark said, deliberately reaching across Emma instead of asking her to pass them. His elbow knocked her water glass. It spilled across her dress. Clumsy, he muttered. Emma looked at me. I gave her a small smile. She smiled back, that brave little smile that broke my heart every time. My mother clucked her tongue. Go clean yourself up. Honestly. Emma slid from her chair and walked to the bathroom. I heard the door close softly. I swear she's so awkward, Jennifer said. Must be genetic from the father's side. They all laughed. I pulled out my phone under the table and opened my banking app. Then I sent a text to my financial advisor. Michael, initiate protocol 7. All of them. Effective immediately. 3 dots appeared. Then, are you certain? This is irreversible. I typed back. Completely certain. Do it now. Done. All accounts frozen and transfers cancelled. Documentation being prepared. I set my phone down and picked up my wine glass. More turkey? Mom asked Mark, already piling seconds onto his plate. Thanks, Mom. This is amazing. That monthly food stipend really helps us afford quality ingredients. I know, Mom said. Thank goodness for Uncle Raymond's foresight, setting up that trust before he died. Uncle Raymond had been dead for 15 years and never had any money. But they believed the story. Emma returned from the bathroom, her dress damp but clean. She went back to her corner seat. Can I have some turkey now? She asked quietly. When everyone's finished with seconds, Mom said dismissively. Real family first, remember? Mark's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, and set it down. Jennifer's phone buzzed next. She picked it up, read something, and her face went pale. What's wrong? Her husband asked. My grocery account. It says there's been a freeze on all incoming transfers. Some kind of administrative review. Mark grabbed his phone again. Mine too. What the hell? My mother's phone started ringing. She answered it, listened, and her face drained of color. What do you mean the mortgage payment was declined? The automatic transfer should have gone through this morning. I took another sip of wine. Mark was frantically scrolling through his banking app. My car payment bounced. And my credit card payment. This doesn't make sense. The monthly deposits should have covered everything. Maybe it's a bank error, Jennifer's husband suggested. Call them. They all started calling. Mom to the mortgage company, Mark to his bank, Jennifer to the grocery account customer service line. I cut a small piece of turkey and put it on Emma's plate. Then some stuffing. Some green beans. Cranberry sauce. Here, sweetheart, I said quietly. She looked at the food, then at me, uncertain. It's okay. Eat. My mother hung up her phone, her hands shaking. They said the account that's been making my mortgage payments doesn't exist anymore. It just vanished. They're threatening foreclosure proceedings if I don't make the last 6 months of payments immediately. 6 months. Mark stared at her. What do you mean 6 months? The payments have been coming from some trust account. But apparently that account closed today and now they want back payment for everything that bounced. They're saying I owe them $24,000 immediately. The room went silent except for the sound of phones buzzing and ringing constantly now. Mark's face was white. My car account too. They're saying the last year of payments is invalid. The account that was paying doesn't exist anymore. I owe them $13,000 immediately, or they're repossessing the car within 48 hours. Jennifer was crying now, mascara streaking down her face. The scholarship for the kids' school they just called. It's been revoked. Effective immediately. We owe them $45,000 for this year's tuition. They're threatening to expel the kids if we don't pay by Monday. That's 3 days away. Her husband stood up, his face red. This has to be a mistake. Someone messed up. Banks don't just close accounts like this. They do when the person funding them cancels everything, I said quietly. They all turned to look at me, confusion and panic spreading across their faces. I don't understand, Mom whispered. Where did that money come from? Who was paying? I set down my wine glass. I was. Silence. What? Mark said. I've been paying for everything. Your mortgage, Mom. Every single payment for the last 5 years. Your car, Mark. Every monthly payment for 3 years. The kids' school, Jennifer. Every semester, every fee, every activity cost. Your grocery accounts, all of you. Your utilities. Your insurance. Your credit card minimums. Everything. For 5 years. My mother's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. She looked like she'd been physically struck. That's impossible, Mark said, though his voice was shaking. You can't afford all that. You work in consulting. You drive a regular car. You live in a normal apartment. I'm a senior partner at Henderson Financial Group. I made $3.2 million last year. I can afford quite a lot. I chose to live modestly because I was spending roughly $200,000 annually keeping all of you afloat. The number hung in the air. $200,000 per year. For 5 years. Jennifer made a choking sound. Her husband sat down heavily, his face gray. I pulled out my phone and turned it around, showing them my banking app. The balance was clearly visible. Jennifer made another choking sound. Dad helped me set it up, I continued calmly. Before he died. He thought it would be educational for you to learn what dependence feels like. He was disgusted by how you treated Emma. Emma is your mistake, Mom said, her voice shaking with anger now. We had every right to. You had every right to treat a child like garbage while eating food I bought? I interrupted, my voice still calm. You had every right to make my daughter watch while you fed your children first, with money I provided? Mark stood up. You can't do this. You can't just cut us off. I already did. 2 minutes ago. Every account is frozen. Every automatic payment is cancelled. Everything. But we'll lose everything, Jennifer sobbed. The house. Her. The kids' school. Yes, I said simply. You will. My mother's face was red now, tears streaming down her cheeks. Please. Please don't do this. We'll apologize. We'll do better. Emma can eat first from now on. Whatever you want. I looked at Emma. She was eating her turkey quietly, watching everyone with wide eyes. Emma, honey, would you like some pie? I saw they brought your favorite, pumpkin. She nodded slowly. I stood up, cut her a large slice of pumpkin pie, added whipped cream and set it in front of her. The thing is, I said, turning back to my family, Emma doesn't need to eat first. She doesn't need special treatment. She just needed to be treated like a human being. Like family. And you couldn't even manage that. We didn't know, Mark said desperately, standing up from his chair. We didn't know you were paying for everything. If we'd known. You would have what? Treated Emma with basic human decency? That's the problem, Mark. You shouldn't have needed a financial incentive to be kind to a child. You should have just been decent human beings. But you couldn't even manage that. My mother was sobbing now, mascara running down her face in black streaks. What do you want from us? Tell us what to do to fix this. I'll apologize. We'll all apologize. Emma can eat first at every meal. She can have whatever she wants. Just please, please don't do this. I picked up my purse and took Emma's hand. Her small fingers wrapped around mine, warm and trusting. I don't want anything from you. I don't want apologies that only come because your money disappeared. I don't want Emma to eat first because you're scared of losing your house. I just wanted you to understand what it feels like to have everything taken away by people who are supposed to love you. Where are you going? Jennifer asked frantically, standing up too. You can't just leave. We need to talk about this. We need to figure out a payment plan or something. Home. Emma and I are going to have a proper Thanksgiving dinner. Just the two of us. With food I bought. In a home I pay for. Surrounded by love instead of contempt. Wait, Mom said, grabbing my arm. Please. Let's talk about this. We can figure something out. I gently removed her hand. There's nothing to figure out. You'll need to get jobs. Real jobs. Cover your own expenses. Live within your means. It's what you've been telling me to do for years, right? Time to take your own advice. Mark was scrolling through his phone frantically. The utility company is calling. They're saying the payment for the last 3 months bounced. That's because I canceled them, I said. Along with everything else. But it's winter, Jennifer said. We have children. So do I replied, squeezing Emma's hand. I have a child who just spent another holiday being treated like trash while you ate food I provided. I'm done now. I walked toward the door, Emma beside me. You're a monster, my mother shouted behind me. Doing this to your own family. I turned back one last time. No, Mom. I'm just treating you exactly how you treated my daughter. The difference is, Emma is innocent. You're not. We walked out into the cold November evening. Emma was quiet until we got to the car. Mommy, are they going to be okay? I buckled her into her car seat and kissed her forehead. They'll figure it out, sweetheart. They're adults. Are we still going to see them? I thought about that for a moment. Not for a while, baby. Not until they learn to be kind. Okay, she said softly. Then even softer, I'm glad I got to eat the turkey. I drove us home, my phone buzzing constantly with calls and texts from my family. I didn't answer any of them. At home, I made Emma hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. We sat on the couch together and I read her favorite book twice. My phone was still buzzing with messages from Mark, Jennifer, and cousins I hadn't heard from in years, all asking what was happening, begging me to reconsider. I turned my phone off. Emma fell asleep against my shoulder, her face peaceful. Tomorrow I'd call my lawyer and make sure the documentation was airtight. But tonight I just held my daughter and felt lighter than I had in 5 years. They'd learn to survive. Either way, Emma would never again watch other children eat first while she waited for scraps. And that was worth everything. The summer garden party was my mother's annual show of superiority. White linen tablecloths stretched across tables under blooming magnolia trees, crystal glasses caught the afternoon light, and 75 relatives mingled on the perfectly manicured lawn of the house I'd been secretly paying for since 2019. Nobody knew that part. My daughter Emma sat beside me, her 8-year-old face bright with excitement. She'd chosen her favorite yellow dress that morning, the one with sunflowers embroidered along the hem. My son David, 16 and perpetually observant, sat across from us, already looking uncomfortable in his button-down shirt. "This is so pretty, Mom," Emma whispered, reaching for a cucumber sandwich from the tiered serving platter. Before her small fingers could grasp it, my mother's hand shot out and snatched the plate away entirely. "Adopted children eat in the kitchen," my mother announced, her voice cutting through the pleasant conversation around us. "We have standards at this table." The immediate vicinity went silent. Forks paused midair. Aunt Linda's glass stopped halfway to her lips. Emma's hand remained extended, hovering over empty space where the plate had been seconds before. My daughter looked at her empty hands, then at me, confusion clouding her dark eyes. She didn't cry. Emma rarely cried. She'd learned early that tears didn't change cruelty, they only fed it. I reached for my water glass, took a slow sip and said nothing. My hands didn't shake. They never did anymore. "Margaret, don't you think that's a bit harsh?" Uncle Tom ventured carefully from the end of the table. "Harsh?" My mother turned to him with practiced indignation. "I'm teaching appropriate boundaries. This girl needs to understand her place in this family. She's not blood." David's jaw tightened. I caught his eye and gave the smallest shake of my head. "Not yet." My mother continued, emboldened by the audience. "Do you know how much this party costs? How much this entire estate costs to maintain? I can't have every random child thinking they're entitled to the same treatment as real family members." "She's 8 years old," my sister Claire said quietly from her seat. "And she needs to learn," my mother snapped back. "Unlike some people, I don't pretend blood doesn't matter. Jennifer here made her choices. She adopted some stranger's child instead of giving me proper biological grandchildren. Well, actions have consequences." Emma's shoulders curled inward slightly. That small collapse of her posture did something to my carefully maintained composure, but I held it together. I'd learned to hold everything together. "Mom," I said calmly, "Emma is your granddaughter." "Don't insult my intelligence," she replied, gesturing dismissively. "I know what adoption means. It means you were too selfish to have real children. Too focused on your little nonprofit job that barely pays anything. Living in that tiny apartment, depending on family generosity for everything." The tiny apartment she thought I lived in was actually a property I'd purchased as an investment. I rented it to young professionals and stayed there occasionally to maintain the illusion. My actual home was a 4-bedroom house across town that nobody in my family had ever visited. "Grandma," David said, his voice tight. You should stop. I'll speak how I want in my own home, my mother declared, warming to her theme. I've worked hard for everything I have. I raised 3 children in this house. I maintained property values in this neighborhood for 35 years. I don't need lectures from a 16-year-old about how to run my household. Her household. The irony was exquisite. David looked at me. I could see the question in his eyes, the same question he'd been asking for 2 years since he'd accidentally found the documents. When are you going to tell them? I'd always said not yet. The time wasn't right. But watching Emma's small hands clasped together in her lap, watching her try to disappear at a family gathering that should have welcomed her, something shifted. I gave David the slightest nod. He stood up so abruptly his chair scraped against the stone patio. The sound cut through the murmured conversations that had resumed around us. Grandma, he said, his young voice carrying across the garden, should I tell everyone who really paid for this house? The color drained from my mother's face so quickly I thought she might faint. Around us, conversations stuttered to a halt. 75 relatives turned to watch. David, sit down, my mother said, but her voice had lost its certainty. No, he replied. You just humiliated my sister at your party. In your house. Except it's not actually your house anymore, is it? I don't know what you think you know, my mother started. I know that Mom has been paying your mortgage since Dad died, David continued. His hands were shaking but his voice stayed steady. I know that you were 3 months away from foreclosure in 2019. I know that Mom refinanced this entire property under her name to save it. Uncle Tom set down his fork. Aunt Linda's mouth had fallen open. My sister Claire was staring at me with wide eyes. That's not, you're confused, my mother stammered. I'm not confused, David said. I found the documents last year when I was looking for my birth certificate. Mom keeps everything organized in labeled files. Property deeds, mortgage statements, payment records. All of it. My mother's face had gone from white to red. Jennifer, tell him he's mistaken. I took another sip of water. He's not mistaken. The garden was so quiet I could hear the fountain 3 yards away, the gentle splash of water over stone. When Dad died, I said calmly, addressing the table, he left significant debts nobody knew about. Medical bills from treatments insurance didn't cover. Business loans he'd personally guaranteed. Mom was facing foreclosure within months. You told us you had it handled, Claire said to our mother. I did handle it, my mother snapped, but her authority was crumbling. You called me, I corrected. You called me crying at 2 in the morning begging for help. You said you'd lose everything. You said Dad's memory would be destroyed if people knew he'd left you in debt. Uncle Tom leaned forward. How much debt? $473,000, I said. Medical bills, business loans, and 18 months of missed mortgage payments with penalties. Aunt Linda gasped. How did you, your nonprofit job? I don't work at a nonprofit, I said. I own one. I'm the founder and director of Riverside Community Foundation. We manage assets worth approximately $200 million. My annual salary is $280,000. I also consult for 3 other charitable organizations. My total annual income is around $450,000. The silence was absolute. That's not possible, my mother whispered. You live in that tiny apartment. You drive that old car. You never have money when we go out. The apartment is an investment property I rent out, I explained. I stay there when I visit to avoid questions. The car is 12 years old because it runs perfectly and I don't care about impressing people. And I never have money when we go out because I'm tired of paying for everyone's meals while being told I'm the family failure. But you always said, Claire started. I never said anything, I interrupted. You all assumed. When I started the foundation 8 years ago I tried to tell you. Mom interrupted to explain how charities don't make money. Dad changed the subject to talk about proper careers. I stopped trying to correct you. My mother was gripping the edge of the table. The house is in my name, I confirmed. When you called that night I paid off all of Dad's debts. I refinanced the mortgage, made you the primary resident, and I've been paying it ever since. $4,200 every month for 7 years. Plus property taxes. Plus the major repairs you thought insurance covered. Why would you do that? Uncle Tom asked. Because she's my mother, I said simply. Because this was my childhood home. Because, despite everything, I didn't want to see her homeless. Despite everything, my mother repeated, and I heard the threat in her voice, the old instinct to control the narrative. Despite being told my entire life that I was the disappointment, I said, my voice still calm. Despite Dad telling me business school was wasted on a daughter. Despite you telling everyone I was barely scraping by while I was actually building something meaningful. Emma's small voice cut through the tension. You own Grandma's house? I looked at my daughter, at her confused, hurt face. Yes, sweetheart. I own this house. And you are my daughter, which means you have every right to be here. More right than almost anyone at this table. David sat back down, his job done. He reached across and squeezed Emma's hand. Jennifer, my mother said, trying to reassemble her authority, we can discuss this privately. No, I said. We're discussing it now. In front of everyone. Because you just told my 8-year-old daughter she's not good enough to eat at your table. At a table I own. In a house I pay for. Aunt Linda's husband, Richard, spoke up from the far end. So what happens now? Now, I said, pulling my phone from my purse, we make some changes. I opened my email and began typing, my fingers steady on the screen. I'm emailing my property manager and my attorney. Effective immediately, the residents at 847 Maple Grove will have new occupancy terms. You can't, my mother started. I can, I said, still typing. It's my property. You're listed as primary resident, not owner. That's a revocable arrangement. Where would I go? The fear in her voice was real now. I'm not evicting you, I said, finishing the email and looking up. But there will be changes. First, Emma is welcome in every room of this house. Every chair, every table, every space. If she's not welcome, then nobody is. Emma was watching me with wide eyes. Second, I continued, the narrative changes today. I'm done being the family disappointment. You want to live in this house I bought? Then you acknowledge reality. I'm successful. My work matters. And my daughter, both my children, are your grandchildren without qualification. My mother's hands were shaking. You'd really throw me out over this? You really just told an 8-year-old child she had to eat in the kitchen because she's adopted, I replied. At a party I'm ultimately paying for. Yes, I'd really do this. Claire found her voice. How long has it been? Since you paid off everything. 7 years, I said. I closed on the refinance in September 2019. And you never told anyone, Uncle Tom said slowly. You just let us all think. That I was struggling, I finished. Yes. Because it was easier than fighting about it. Because every time I tried to share good news, someone explained why it wasn't that impressive. So I stopped sharing. Richard shook his head. That's over $400,000 you've paid. Just in mortgage payments. $428,000 in mortgage payments, I corrected. Roughly another $180,000 in property taxes, insurance and major repairs. The roof in 2021, the HVAC system last year, the foundation work. My mother had tears running down her face now, but they didn't move me the way they might have years ago. I'd seen her cry before, usually when she wanted something. I've been grateful, she whispered. I just didn't know. You did know, I said quietly. You knew I was paying for everything. You chose to believe I was somehow doing it while barely surviving, because that fit your narrative better than admitting your daughter had succeeded. Emma tugged on my sleeve. Can we go home? In a minute, baby, I said, stroking her hair. First, Grandma needs to apologize to you. My mother looked up, mascara streaking her cheeks. She opened her mouth, closed it, then looked at Emma's small face. I'm sorry, she said, and for the first time she sounded like she might mean it. That was cruel. You didn't deserve that. Emma nodded silently, still pressed against my side. I stood up, gathering my purse. David and Emma stood with me. We're leaving now. The party can continue. I'll have my attorney send over the updated residency agreement next week. Read it carefully, Mom. As we walked through the garden toward the front driveway, I heard the explosion of conversation behind us. 75 relatives all trying to process what they'd just learned. David opened the car door for Emma, then slid into the front seat. As I started the engine, he said quietly, "That was intense." "That was necessary," I replied. "Are you really going to make her sign new papers?" Emma asked from the back seat. "Yes, I said. Not to be cruel. But boundaries matter. And you matter, Emma. You matter more than pretending everything is fine. In the rearview mirror I saw Emma nod, her face thoughtful. As we pulled away from the house I owned, the house my mother thought was her throne, I felt something I hadn't felt in years at a family gathering. Peace. My phone started buzzing before we reached the end of the street. Claire's name flashed on the screen. Then Uncle Tom. Then Aunt Linda. I turned the phone face down and kept driving. They could wait. For 7 years I'd waited while they assumed, judged, and dismissed. While they built their comfortable narratives about my failure and their superiority. They could wait a few hours to hear the truth they should have asked about years ago. Beside me, David turned on the radio. Behind me, Emma hummed along to a song she recognized. And I drove us home, to the house nobody knew about, where my daughter could eat at any table she wanted. The mahogany dining table had been in my family for 3 generations. Every Sunday at precisely 6 o'clock, we gathered around it for dinner. My mother set the table with her grandmother's china, the kind she only used for real family occasions, as she called them. I arrived at my parents' house with my 2 children, Marcus 15 and Lily 8. Lily had been with us for 6 months now, and the adoption would be finalized in 3 weeks. She held my hand tightly as we walked up the familiar stone pathway to the front door. "Remember what we talked about?" I whispered to her. "You belong here just as much as anyone else." She nodded, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. My family hadn't exactly welcomed the news of our foster placement with enthusiasm. My mother had made several pointed comments over the phone about keeping bloodlines pure, and not knowing where these children come from. My father opened the door, barely glancing at Lily before turning his attention to Marcus. "There's my grandson. Come help me with something in the garage before dinner." Marcus looked at me and I gave him a subtle nod. He'd been my rock through this entire process, protective of his new sister in ways that made my heart swell with pride. Inside, the house smelled of roasted chicken and my mother's famous herb stuffing. My sister Jennifer was already seated in the living room with her husband Todd and their 3 children. My brother David sat in my father's recliner, scrolling through his phone. "Oh, you brought her," Jennifer said, not bothering to hide the disapproval in her voice. "Her name is Lily," I said evenly. "And yes, she's part of our family now." My mother emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Her eyes swept over Lily with the same expression she used when examining produce at the grocery store. "Dinner's ready. Everyone to the table." We filed into the dining room. I'd counted the place settings earlier when we arrived. 9 plates for 9 people. The math was right, but something felt wrong. My mother began directing everyone to their seats with the precision of a military general. "Jennifer, you and Todd here. David, you're at the end. Marcus, next to your grandfather." I guided Lily toward 2 empty chairs together. Before we could sit, my mother's hand shot out. "Not there. That's Jennifer's usual spot." "There's another seat right here," I said, pointing to the chair beside Marcus. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. She walked to the kitchen and returned with a folding chair, the cheap plastic kind we used for overflow guests at Thanksgiving. She placed it against the wall, several feet from the table. "She can sit there." The room went silent. Even my nieces and nephews stopped their chatter. "Mom, there are empty chairs at the table." "Those are for family," she said simply, as if explaining basic arithmetic. I felt Lily's hand tighten around mine. I looked down at her, and she was staring at the folding chair with the kind of resignation that no 8-year-old should ever have to feel. "She is family," I said, my voice steady despite the anger building in my chest. My father cleared his throat from his position at the head of the table. "Your mother set the table the way she wants it. Let's not make a scene." "I'm not the one making a scene." Jennifer sighed dramatically. "Can we just eat? Some of us have to get the kids home at a reasonable hour." I pulled out the chair next to Marcus. "Lily, sit here." My mother's face flushed red. She crossed the room in 3 quick steps and physically grabbed the back of the chair I just pulled out. "Foster kids don't belong at the family table," she sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. Everyone froze. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Lily didn't move. She didn't cry. She just stood there, her small hands still in mine, staring at the plate of food she'd never get to touch. Then Marcus, who had been sitting quietly through the entire exchange, calmly pulled out his phone. His fingers moved across the screen with purpose. "Grandma," he said, his voice remarkably steady for a 15-year-old, "want me to show everyone the real family will?" My parents' faces drained of color simultaneously. My mother's grip on the chair loosened. My father set down his water glass so hard it sloshed onto the tablecloth. "Marcus, put that away," my father said, but his voice cracked. "Why?" Marcus asked innocently. "I think everyone should know the truth. Especially Aunt Jennifer and Uncle David, since they keep talking about their inheritance shares." Jennifer sat up straighter. "What is he talking about?" Marcus looked at me and I gave him a small nod. We'd discussed this possibility. I'd hoped it wouldn't come to this, but my mother had finally crossed a line I couldn't uncross. 3 years ago, Marcus began, still holding his phone, when Grandpa Joe died and left everything to Mom, Grandma and Grandpa were really upset. "Remember that, Aunt Jennifer?" Jennifer's eyes narrowed. "Of course I remember. Dad contested it. Said Grandpa Joe wasn't in his right mind." "Right," Marcus continued. "And the whole family fell apart for about 6 months. Everyone fighting over money and property." My brother David leaned forward. "We all know this story, kid. What's your point?" "My point is what you don't know. Mom settled everything. She gave Grandma and Grandpa the lake house outright. She gave Aunt Jennifer 40% of Grandpa Joe's stock portfolio. She gave Uncle David the commercial property in downtown that now rents for $35,000 a month." The room had gone completely silent now. Even my young nieces and nephews sensed something important was happening. Mom kept only one thing from Grandpa Joe's estate. Want to guess what it was? No one answered. "The trust fund. The one Grandpa Joe set up that pays for this house's mortgage, Grandma and Grandpa's living expenses, Aunt Jennifer's kids' private school tuition, and Uncle David's car payments." Marcus paused. "Mom is the sole trustee. Has been for 3 years." My mother's hand flew to her throat. "That's not, you can't, I can pull up the documents right now," Marcus said, tapping his phone screen. "Mom made me co-trustee last year when I turned 15. It's all legal. She wanted me to understand financial responsibility." My father's chair scraped against the hardwood floor as he stood abruptly. "Now hold on just a minute." "Sit down, Dad," I said quietly. My voice had that edge I usually reserved for difficult clients at the law firm. "Let him finish." Marcus continued. "The trust agreement is really specific about how the money can be used and who qualifies as beneficiaries. Grandpa Joe was very clear. He wrote that funds should only support family members who demonstrate compassion, integrity, and unconditional love toward all family members, especially the most vulnerable." Jennifer's face had gone pale. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, standing up and putting my arm around Lily, "that the trust can be terminated for beneficiaries who fail to meet those standards. It's not automatic. As trustee I have discretion. But discrimination against a minor child, especially a foster child who will legally become my daughter in 3 weeks, that's pretty clearly against Grandpa Joe's wishes." My mother finally found her voice. "You wouldn't dare." "Wouldn't I?" I met her eyes directly. "You just told my 8-year-old daughter that she doesn't deserve to sit at the family table. You brought out a folding chair like she's some kind of overflow guest at a party. What exactly do you think Grandpa Joe would say about that?" The silence stretched out. I could see the calculations happening behind my siblings' eyes. Jennifer's kids attended a private academy that cost $48,000 per year per child. The trust paid for all 3 of them. David's lifestyle depended entirely on that rental income, since his own business had failed 2 years ago. And my parents? They lived in this house mortgage-free because the trust paid the remaining balance of $16,000 per month. Their car, their country club membership, their twice-yearly vacations, all funded by the trust distributions. "This is blackmail," my father said, but there was no strength behind it. "No," I corrected. "This is consequences. For 3 years I've paid for your lives without asking for anything in return. I didn't even tell you the truth because I didn't want it to change how you treated me. I wanted your love to be genuine, not purchased." I knelt down next to Lily, who was still standing frozen in the same spot. "But I won't let you hurt my daughter. Not for money. Not for anything." Jennifer stood up suddenly. "This is insane. You're going to cut off the whole family because Mom made a seeding mistake." "A seeding mistake?" Marcus's voice was sharp. She literally said foster kids don't belong at the family table. That's not a mistake. That's who she is. Todd, Jennifer's husband, put his hand on her arm. Jen, maybe we should. Shut up, Todd. Jennifer's face was red now. You're really going to take away my kid's education over this? I'm not taking anything, I said. I'm giving you a choice. Apologize to Lily. Mean it. And agree that from now on she is treated exactly like every other grandchild in this family. Or the trust distributions stop next month. My mother made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Marcus pulled up something on his phone and turned it toward my father. That's the trust document. Section 12, subsection C. The trustee may terminate benefits to any beneficiary whose actions demonstrate cruelty, prejudice, or willful harm to vulnerable family members. Mom has every right to do this. My father's hands were shaking as he read the screen. I watched the realization settle over him. This wasn't a bluff. This was real. Lily, my mother said, her voice strangled. I apologize. That was inappropriate. Try again, I said coldly. And this time look at her when you say it. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but I felt no sympathy. She walked slowly across the room until she stood directly in front of Lily. I'm sorry, she said, and this time she did look at my daughter. You belong here. You're part of this family. Lily looked up at me, uncertain. I nodded to her. It's okay, Lily whispered. No, I said. It's not okay. But it's a start. I looked around the room at my family. These people I'd loved my entire life who had shown me exactly who they were when it mattered most. Here's how this works from now on. Lily gets treated like every other grandchild. Same presents at. Same attention at birthdays. Same seats at the same table. If I see any difference, any at all, the trust distributions stop. Permanently. You're destroying this family, David said quietly. No, I replied. I'm saving it. Or at least I'm saving the part worth keeping. I pulled out the chair at the table and guided Lily into it. Then I sat down beside her with Marcus on her other side. Now, I said, picking up my fork, let's have Sunday dinner. As a family. My mother served the food with shaking hands. The meal was silent except for the scraping of silverware on china. Jennifer left early with her family, barely saying goodbye. David sat through the entire dinner, staring at his plate. As we were leaving, my father stopped me at the door. Your grandfather would be proud of you, he said quietly. I'm sorry it took this to make us see clearly. I nodded but didn't respond. Words were cheap. I'd spent my whole life listening to words. It was time to watch actions instead. In the car on the way home, Lily finally spoke. Are they going to be nicer now? I don't know, I told her honestly. But if they're not, it won't matter. Because we don't need them. Marcus leaned forward from the back seat. We're our own family now. The three of us. Lily smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her all day. 3 weeks later, the adoption was finalized. My parents sent a card with a small gift. Jennifer's family didn't acknowledge it at all. David sent a text message with a generic congratulations. But it didn't matter. Because on that courthouse day when the judge declared Lily legally mine, I looked at my 2 children and knew I'd made the right choice. Some things are worth more than money or family approval. Some things are worth everything.